My brother pushed my fiancé to cheat on me at his bachelor party to knock me off my pedestal. But he forgot one thing. 4 days before my wedding, I was sitting on my bedroom floor in a half-zipped garment bag kind of mood, staring at the dress like it was going to explain itself. The apartment smelled like cardboard and hairspray and that sugary candle my mother insisted would make the place feel bridal. She says things like that as if the universe responds to adjectives. My phone buzzed. I saw my best friend's name and smiled on reflex, because she'd been my calm voice through every stupid detail. The seating chart drama, the endless emails, my mother's obsession with what other people think. Then I answered, and the way she said my name took the smile right off my face. "Where are you?" she asked. "In my apartment," I said, already bracing, because nobody asks that like it's casual. "Are you alone?" she pressed. I looked around at the mess. Gift bags, ribbons, a stack of printed place cards I'd been obsessively alphabetizing like that could keep my life from falling apart. "Yeah," I said. "What's going on?" She exhaled hard. "Okay. I need you to listen to me and not hang up." And just like that, my stomach dropped, because that sentence only shows up when someone is about to hand you a truth you didn't order. 3 years earlier, my best friend had been cheated on by my brother. Not the movie version where people cry and learn something. The real version, where you find messages, you confront, and the person you trusted looks you in the eye and tries to convince you you're the problem for noticing. She left him. It wrecked her for months. It also wrecked the way my family looked at her, because apparently the greatest sin in our household is making a man face consequences. Yes, I know how that sounds. I wish I were exaggerating. When my best friend left my brother, my mother acted like she'd committed a crime against the family brand. I still remember my mother's voice, soft and disappointed, saying things like, "You don't air private matters," as if cheating is a private matter but consequences are the scandal. She stopped inviting my best friend to birthdays. She stopped answering her texts. She told relatives that my best friend was vindictive. My brother got to be young and confused. She got to be dramatic. That was the translation my family always offered. Men make mistakes. Women make scenes. My best friend didn't fight them. She just stepped back, healed quietly, and kept living. The kind of living that looks boring from the outside but is actually revolutionary when you come from a family that thinks suffering is a virtue. So when my best friend said, "I heard something about his bachelor party," my brain tried to reject it like a bad email attachment. "What did you hear?" I asked. She hesitated, and I could hear her trying to choose words that wouldn't shatter me too violently. "His best friend told me," she said. "Not because he's suddenly a good person, because your brother got drunk and ran his mouth. And now people are talking." My throat went dry. "Talking about what?" She said it in one rush. My fiancé had gone into a back room with the hired dancer, and my brother had been the one pushing him, hyping him up, acting like he was doing him a favor. She said there were messages afterward, group chat stuff, laughing, celebrating, calling it a last taste of freedom. She said the rumor started when my brother told someone who told someone who told someone, because gossip is a parasite that survives on other people's pain. For a second, I couldn't speak. I stared at my closet door like it was going to open and reveal this was all a prank. My dress hung there, silent, expensive, innocent. "That's not true," I blurted out. Denial came out of my mouth before I could even think. It was like my body needed to say it to stay upright. My best friend didn't push. She just said, "I'm so sorry. I wouldn't do this to you unless I was sure." I hung up and immediately called my fiancé. Because if you've ever been blindsided, you know the impulse. Go straight to the source, as if the person who betrayed you will suddenly become honest because you asked nicely. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, babe," he said, warm and normal. "You okay?" Something in my brain went quiet, like it flipped into a cold, focused place. "I need you to tell me what happened at your bachelor party," I said. Silence. Not long, but long enough. "What?" He laughed like I'd said something ridiculous. "Nothing happened. We just hung out." "Did you go into a back room with the dancer?" I asked. He denied it so fast it was almost impressive. "No, absolutely not. Where is this coming from?" I swallowed. If I ask my brother for his phone, what am I going to find? And that's when he froze. I couldn't see him, but I heard it. The tiny hitch in his voice, the sudden rush of words that comes when someone is trying to outrun the truth. "Why are you involving your brother?" He snapped. "This is between us. You're letting people mess with your head." "So something happened," I said, and my voice sounded weirdly calm, which scared me more than yelling would have. He exhaled. long and shaky. "I was drunk," he said. "I don't remember everything. It was stupid. It didn't mean anything." The way he tried to shrink it down, like it was a spilled drink, like it was nothing, made something harden in my chest. "I'm not asking if it meant anything," I said. "I'm asking if you did it." Another pause, then softer. "I don't know," he said. "I don't remember, but if anything happened, it wasn't like that." I let out a laugh that sounded wrong even to me. The kind you make when your brain can't decide if it wants to cry or throw something. I hung up without saying goodbye because I didn't trust myself to keep talking. Then I messaged my brother. I kept it simple because if I wrote a paragraph, I'd sound like I was begging. "Did my fiancé hook up with someone at his bachelor party?" My brother replied almost instantly, like he'd been waiting. "He got attention from someone who actually knows how to satisfy a man." My hands went cold. Then another message. "Now you get it." Then, the perfect one fell off her pedestal. I stared at my phone until my eyes burned. It wasn't just betrayal, it was the smugness, the cruelty, the fact that my brother sounded pleased, like my pain was a prize he'd been owed. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced. I reread messages. I opened my email and stared at vendor contracts like they were a foreign language. I did mental math like it was a comfort object. Deposits, fees, what I'd already paid, what I'd lose. I made myself drink water because my mouth was so dry it hurt. I tried to lie down and my body refused. When the sun came up, I stood in my kitchen and canceled the catering with shaking hands. The woman on the other end sounded sympathetic in that professional way people do when they've said, "I'm sorry to hear that," 1,000 times. When I hung up, my throat tightened so hard I had to lean over the sink and breathe. I walked back into my bedroom and stared at the garment bag. The dress looked ridiculous, like a costume for a life that no longer existed. My name is Brielle, and I wish I could tell you I handled the next part with grace. I didn't. I handled it like a flawed, impulsive woman who'd been told her whole life that being the responsible one meant swallowing everything and smiling. I wasn't smiling anymore. That same afternoon, I called the attorney who'd helped me put our wedding expenses in writing months earlier. Not a prenup. We never even made it to marriage. This was the unromantic, practical piece. A signed breakdown of who paid what and who reimbursed what if things went sideways, because the venue required one primary signer, and I refused to let love be the only plan for my bank account. It wasn't romantic, but it was practical. My attorney had suggested a simple written breakdown because the venue required one primary signer, and I didn't want a financial mess if anything went sideways. When the attorney answered, her voice was calm in that way that made me want to either hug her or scream. I explained what happened, stumbling through it like my mouth couldn't keep up with my brain. I told her the wedding was in 4 days, that I'd started canceling things, that my fiancé was denying and minimizing, that my brother was openly cruel. She didn't gasp. She didn't offer platitudes. She said, "Save everything in writing. Stop having emotional phone calls. If he contacts you, respond once, briefly, and then direct him to me. Make a list of every cost you've paid and every cost he agreed to cover." It felt cold. It also felt like putting shoes on after stepping on glass. Painful, but necessary. After we hung up, I sat on my couch with a notebook and started writing like my life depended on it. Vendor names, deposit amounts, cancellation policies, dates. I pulled up old texts and highlighted the ones where my fiancé said he'd cover specific things. I downloaded contracts and saved them in a folder on my laptop like I was building a case file instead of grieving. 2 days later, I called a cousin who'd been at the bachelor party. He wasn't part of my brother's inner circle. He was the kind of guy who shows up, eats food, laughs politely, and leaves early because he has work in the morning. In other words, the kind of witness I could almost trust. He didn't answer at first. When he finally picked up, he sounded wary, like he'd already been warned. I said, "I'm not asking you to pick sides. I'm asking you to tell me what you saw." He sighed. "I didn't want to be in this," he said, which is exactly what people say right before confirming the worst. He told me my brother was the loudest person in the room all night. That my fiancé kept saying he didn't want to do anything that would mess up our relationship. And my brother kept making prison jokes. How marriage was a life sentence. How this was his last night of freedom. My cousin said my brother kept ordering extra drinks, sliding them toward my fiancé like he was feeding a machine. Then, when the dancer arrived, my brother started chanting and clapping and pushing my fiancé forward, like he wanted to be the director of the moment. "Did you actually see them go into a back room?" I asked. My cousin hesitated. "I saw them disappear," he admitted. "And I saw him come back without his button-down on. Your brother was laughing like he'd won something. After we hung up, my cousin texted screenshots from the group chat. I had to hold my phone with both hands because my fingers kept twitching. There was my brother, writing 2 days after the party. He's not getting married anyway, followed by laughing emojis. Someone asked if the party was good, and my brother wrote, "Mission accomplished." That phrase stuck to my brain like gum, not because it was clever, because it was proof my brother wanted this damage. Once I had the screenshots, the rest moved fast. I canceled the florist, the rentals, the little extras that add up so quickly you don't notice until the bank balance looks like it got punched. Every vendor had the same polite tone. I'd say, "Hi, I need to cancel." And they'd say, "I'm sorry to hear that." And then they'd slide right into the policy like grief is just a scheduling conflict. I told my parents that night. I drove to their house and sat at the kitchen table, and my mother offered me food, like snacks can patch betrayal. I blurted out what happened before she could ask about centerpieces. My father went quiet the way he does when he's trying not to explode. My mother's first words were, "What will people think?" And I swear I felt something inside me crack. "I'm the one who got cheated on," I said, and my voice shook, which made me feel exposed, which made me furious. My father asked one question, "Did your brother do this?" I showed them the messages. My father's jaw clenched. My mother pressed her lips together, fingers twisting at her ring like she could squeeze the situation smaller. That night, my best friend came over with groceries because she knew I wasn't eating. We sat on my couch and she said, "You are not crazy. You are not overreacting." She said it like she was stitching my sanity back together, and I clung to it because the alternative was sinking. In the days that followed, everything turned into a blur of humiliation and logistics. I live in a mid-sized city in the United States, the kind where news travels through group chats faster than traffic moves. People love to say heartbreak makes you stronger. What it really makes you do is juggle. You juggle grief, anger, paperwork, and the fact that your job still expects you to show up and pretend you aren't walking around with your inside scraped raw. I work an office job that's not glamorous, scheduling, spreadsheets, answering emails for a company that sells boring stuff to other boring companies. It pays my rent. It gives me health insurance. It also comes with coworkers who can smell drama like it's smoke. By day 3, my manager asked, "Everything okay?" In that careful tone people use when they want details, but also want to feel like good people. "I'm fine," I lied, because that's what I do. On my lunch break, I sat in my car and stared at my phone until my eyes crossed. My fiancé texted like nothing happened. "Can we talk? Please. I love you." Then, when I didn't respond fast enough, the tone shifted. "Why are you doing this? You're blowing it up. You're letting your friend poison you." Classic. Meanwhile, my brother texted my mother non-stop, trying to get ahead of the story. I only know because my mother kept reading me pieces of it like she was offering evidence of his emotional state, as if that mattered more than what he'd done. "He says he didn't mean it like that. He says you're making him look bad. He says you've always been judgmental." I told her. "He made himself look bad." And she flinched like I'd cursed at the dinner table. A week after my best friend's call, I asked my fiancé's father to meet me at a coffee shop near my apartment, not because I wanted his permission to cancel a wedding. That idea would have made my skin crawl. But because I wanted someone in my fiancé's family to understand that this wasn't just a misunderstanding, he could smooth over with flowers. His father had always been the practical one, calm, no drama, the kind of man who fixed problems quietly, like they were leaky faucets. I also told my brother to meet me there. I didn't tell either of them the other one would be present. I'm not proud of that. I just knew that if I tried to confront them separately, my brother would lie and my fiancé would hide behind plausible deniability. Together, they would either keep their stories straight like a well-rehearsed play, or they'd trip over each other. When I walked into the coffee shop, my stomach was doing that tight, floaty thing like I'd swallowed a stone. I wore a plain sweater and jeans, no makeup, hair in a messy knot, because I couldn't stand the idea of looking like the bride in public. I wanted to feel invisible. Instead, I felt like everyone could see the word humiliated stamped on my forehead. My fiancé's father arrived first. He stood when he saw me, polite, concerned. "You said it was important," he said. "It is," I replied. Then my brother walked in, swaggering like he owned the place. He smiled at me like he thought we were about to share a joke. I wanted to throw my drink at him. I didn't, because I have a lifetime of training in being the good one. My brother looked at the older man, then at me. "What's this?" he asked. My fiancé's father frowned. "Who are you?" "My brother," I said, and watched my brother's expression shift a fraction. He realized. He didn't like it. I didn't accuse right away. I asked simple questions. When did the party start? Who arranged the lounge add-on? Who paid for the extra time? The more neutral I sounded, the more my brother relaxed into talking. He loves an audience. It was just a party, he said. Guys being guys. No big deal. She's freaking out because she likes to control everything. He said it right in front of my fiancé's father, which told me he thought charm could erase facts. My fiancé's father looked uncomfortable. There was a dancer? He asked. My brother shrugged. It's normal. It's not like anyone got hurt. I let him talk until he contradicted himself. At first he claimed nothing happened. Then he said something might have happened, but it wasn't serious. Then he insisted he wasn't even around for most of it. He moved through versions like he was trying on outfits, searching for the one that would make him look least guilty. My fiancé's father finally said, "So did my son go into a back room with her?" My brother laughed. He was drunk. He probably doesn't remember. It was just... He waved his hand. It was harmless. I took out my phone and slid it across the table. I didn't have to make a speech. I just opened the screenshots my cousin sent and let the proof speak. My fiancé's father stared. I watched his face change as he read. The laughing. The mission accomplished. The message describing my fiancé disappearing into the back room. The celebratory responses. He looked up slowly. "Is this real?" he asked. My brother's eyes narrowed. "It's a joke," he said quickly. Group chats are always like that. People exaggerate. "Then why did you write it?" I asked. Still calm, still controlled, which felt like holding a knife by the blade. My brother shrugged, then slipped into his favorite move, making me the problem. "Because she needed to be taken down a peg," he said. "She walks around like she's better than everyone. Miss Perfect. Miss, I pay my bills on time. It gets old." My fiancé's father looked like he'd been slapped. "You sabotaged your sister's wedding because you felt insecure?" he asked, voice low. My brother scoffed. "Sabotaged? God. You people are dramatic." I watched my fiancé's father's hands tighten around his cup. He didn't yell. He didn't slam his fist. He just said, "I'm going to speak to my son," in a tone that made it clear the conversation would not be pleasant. When the older man walked out, my brother leaned back and smirked. "So what? You're canceling because of some flirting?" he asked. "You're going to throw away 5 years because your man had one night?" I looked at him and realized something I should have realized a long time ago. My brother didn't believe I deserved anything stable. He believed stability was something I performed, not something I earned. If he couldn't have it, I couldn't either. "I'm canceling because he lied," I said, "and because you enjoyed hurting me." My brother's smile slipped. "You're overreacting," he muttered. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady. "Get used to people knowing the truth," I said. And I walked out before my face could give me away. I cried in my car instead, like a cliché, because apparently I'm not immune to clichés when my life explodes. That night, my fiancé's father called me. His voice sounded older. He admitted it, he said quietly. He says he was drunk and he's sorry. He says your brother pushed him. I stared at the wall. "So he's a grown man who can be pushed into cheating," I said. "Good to know." His father didn't defend him. That was the only gift in that call. He just said, "I'm embarrassed. I'm sorry you're going through this." And after that, his family stopped defending him publicly. They didn't post explanations or excuses. Silence was the closest thing to an apology they could manage. I hung up and sat on my couch for a long time, listening to the hum of my refrigerator, because life keeps making boring noises even when you feel like you're dissolving. Before I sent anything to anyone, I asked my attorney one blunt question. "Can I get in trouble for sharing screenshots?" She told me not to play internet lawyer, to avoid adding commentary, to blur names of unrelated people, and to stick to what was directly relevant. She said the same thing my father would later say in his own language. If you don't want people to see your words, don't write them. The next morning, I did something I never thought I would do. I sent evidence into the 2 biggest group chats connected to my life. One for my extended family, one for the wedding party, without a single caption. I cropped out names of anyone who wasn't directly involved. I blacked out profile photos. I didn't add accusations or a story, just timestamps and their words, because facts don't need a narrator. Then I muted both chats and walked away from my phone like it was hot. Part of me wanted to be above it. Part of me wanted to keep it private, to handle it with dignity, because that's what my mother would prefer. Quiet suffering, no mess, no public consequences. But another part of me, This newer part that was sick of being everyone's emotional cushion knew exactly what would happen if I stayed silent. My brother would frame himself as the victim. My fiancé would rewrite it as a misunderstanding. And I'd be the unstable bride who couldn't handle a joke. I wasn't going to let them get ahead of the truth. Not this time. Within hours, the wedding party chat turned into chaos. People asked questions. People posted their own memories of my brother acting reckless. A couple of friends tried to play mediator, the way people do when they want to feel mature but don't want to actually take a stand. My best friend texted me separately. "You did the right thing." My cousin sent me a simple, "I'm here," which felt better than any speech. The family chat was worse. My mother called me in tears. "Why would you air this out?" she wailed. "Do you want everyone to hate him?" I had to bite back the impulse to say, "Yes." Instead, I said, "I want everyone to know what he did." She cried harder. "He's your brother." I stared at the ceiling and tried to breathe. "And I was his sister," I replied. Apparently, that didn't matter to him. My brother, predictably, launched a counterattack on a social media app within half a day. He posted a long, dramatic rant about how I was spiraling and creating a narrative because I was scared of commitment. He said I'd always been controlling. He said I was using a harmless party as an excuse to run. My fiancé posted too. Not an apology, not an explanation, an accusation. He implied I was paranoid. He implied my best friend manipulated me because she still wasn't over my brother. He wrote a line about how he'd just talked to someone and I turned it into a scandal. People responded under his post with the screenshots. Watching strangers publicly fact-check the man I thought I'd marry was surreal. It felt like my personal life had turned into a comment section. Then the venue email hit. It landed in my inbox mid-afternoon while I was at work pretending to care about a scheduling issue. The subject line was something like, "Additional charges due to contract violation." My heart started pounding before I even opened it. The venue manager wrote that during the private lounge reservation, there had been smoking in a prohibited area and spilled alcohol on the carpet, leaving a stain that required a deep cleaning. They attached photos. They attached an invoice. They wrote, politely but firmly, that because the lounge add-on had been attached to my wedding package, same account, same contract, same primary signer, I was responsible for the cost. The manager's email also included a detail that made my blood go cold. The lounge add-on didn't require a brand new contract. It was an option inside the same booking portal. One approval click, one deposit. That was it. My brother didn't have to forge my signature or steal my identity. He just exploited the fact that add-ons didn't require a new contract, just an approval click and a deposit. They had my card on file. They had my name on the paperwork. In their eyes, I was the responsible party. I sat there in my cubicle, staring at the screen, and I felt this wave of anger so hot it made the back of my neck burn. My brother had used my wedding contract to book his stupid last night lounge to save money. My fiancé had gone along with it. And now, even after the betrayal, even after the humiliation, I was the one getting billed. I forwarded the email to my attorney and then, because I am human and impulsive, I texted my brother, "You used my venue contract for your party, and now they're charging me for damage." He replied, "Not my problem." I stared at that message until my vision blurred. Not my problem. As if he hadn't made it his problem when he decided my joy needed to be destroyed. I paid the fee that night. Not because I accepted responsibility, but because my name was on the contract and I refused to let my credit get wrecked on top of everything else. I also asked the venue manager, politely, for written confirmation that the lounge reservation had been booked through my package, and for any logs they had of who checked in and who signed the lounge rules. It wasn't glamorous revenge. It was boring adult survival. The venue manager called me the next morning after I asked for logs. She sounded apologetic but firm, like she was trained to be empathetic without giving away leverage. She confirmed that the lounge add-on had been booked through the same portal as my wedding, and that the confirmation email went to the address on file. Mine. She also forwarded a separate message thread where my brother asked about extending the lounge, adding a late-night snack tray and whether staff would look the other way if the guys got loud. It was written in that half-joking, half-entitled tone men use when they assume rules are flexible for them. She couldn't give me credit card details for whoever physically clicked the add-on because venues don't hand out payment information just because you're furious. But she could give me something better for court. The audit log showing the add-on was attached to my contract ID, the time it was approved, and the emails used during the back and forth. My brother's address was on the thread. His name wasn't on my contract, but his fingerprints were all over the planning. She also told me they didn't have security footage inside the lounge because it was marketed as private. and they prioritized client privacy. That annoyed me for about 5 seconds, until I realized it didn't matter. I wasn't trying to prove every sloppy detail of the night. I was trying to prove responsibility for charges. In court, boring proof beats dramatic rumors. I thanked her, hung up, and saved every attachment twice, because apparently betrayal turns you into an amateur records clerk. By the time the week of what was supposed to be my wedding arrived, my apartment looked like a warehouse of canceled dreams. Boxes of decorations, bags of favors, a pile of mail that included refund checks for tiny amounts that felt insulting. My dress still hung in the closet like it was mocking me. My mother insisted we still do the pre-wedding brunch at my parents' house because it was already paid for, and people expect it. She wanted to convert it into a supportive family lunch, which sounded nice on paper and terrifying in reality. I agreed because part of me wanted witnesses. Part of me wanted my brother to be forced to look at me while the consequences settled in. I texted the relatives who were already coming. The wedding is canceled. The gathering is still happening because I need to address things and I don't want rumors doing it for me. I kept it short. If I got emotional in a group text, my mother would take it as proof I was being dramatic. My brother showed up early, of course. He loves controlling rooms. He walked through my parents' house like he owned it, greeting people loudly, making jokes, setting himself up as the friendly host. I watched from the kitchen while my best friend stood beside me, her arms crossed, her jaw tight. "He's trying to prime them," she murmured. "I know," I whispered back, and my fingers kept picking at a paper napkin like it was a nervous habit I couldn't switch off. When everyone finally sat down, my mother cleared her throat and tried to give some speech about family and healing. My father stared at his hands like he was restraining himself from saying something that would set the house on fire. Then my brother launched into his version without being asked. He said I'd misunderstood. He said my fiancé didn't cheat. He said guys talk big in group chats. He said I was punishing everyone because I couldn't handle the idea of being married. I let him talk. I asked questions like I was doing customer service. "So you didn't book the lounge? So you didn't write mission accomplished? So you didn't say he wasn't getting married anyway?" Each question was a small hook, and he kept stepping on them because he can't stand silence. When he finally stopped, looking smug, I pulled out my tablet and played the screenshots in order. Not all of them, just the ones that mattered. My cousins, my brothers, the message describing my fiancé disappearing into the back room, the celebratory replies, the mission accomplished, the "now you get it." The room went quiet. Not awkward quiet, heavy quiet. A relative who'd always babied my brother asked, "Why would you do this to her?" And my brother's face flashed with rage. My best friend stood up. "Because he hates being held accountable," she said, voice firm. "He did it to me too. He wants to tear women down so he can feel powerful." My brother sputtered something about her being bitter. She didn't flinch. "I'm not bitter," she said. "I'm free." My brother shoved his chair back so hard it scraped the floor. He glared at my mother. "Pick," he snapped. "Either you're with her or I'm done with this family." My mother looked like she might faint. And there it was, the old pattern laid bare. My brother creating a crisis to see who would comfort him. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard a framed photo rattled. I sat there numb. My mother started whispering about him being hurt. And my father finally spoke. "He meant it," my father said, voice flat. "And you keep giving him permission." Nobody responded because no one in my family is good at sitting with truth when it's uncomfortable. After everyone left, my mother cornered me in the kitchen and begged me to call my brother. "He's going to cut us off," she said, panicked. "He'll disappear." I looked at her and felt something in me go still. "Then he'll disappear," I said. "I'm not chasing him anymore." 2 weeks after the canceled wedding date, my life had settled into a new kind of misery, the normal kind that still has deadlines. I went to work, I answered emails, I bought groceries, I watched the world keep spinning while mine felt stuck. My attorney sent formal demand letters to my fiancé and my brother, not in a dramatic courtroom speech way. In a boring, firm, "Here is what you owe, here are the documents supporting it, here is the deadline" way. When my attorney drafted the demand letters, she included a clean timeline because courts love boring clarity. She attached the screenshots as exhibits. She attached the venue email and invoice. She attached the contract page showing my name as the primary signer. She attached the text where my fiancé agreed to cover specific costs. Every piece of it felt humiliating, like turning my heartache into paperwork, but it also felt empowering in a weird way. Grief is messy. Evidence is organized. The letters gave them a set number of days to respond. I didn't want to become the woman who sued her family. I wanted my money back and my peace back. But I also refused to be the woman who got financially punished for other people's choices because everyone expected her to be quiet about it. My brother ignored the letter completely, like it was spam. My fiancé responded with a flood of messages. He called, he left voicemails, he emailed. He even showed up outside my apartment one evening, standing near the entrance like a sad statue, as if proximity alone could rewire me. I didn't let him in. I talked through the door like I was in a bad sitcom. "You need to leave," I said. My forehead pressed to the wood because my legs felt weak. "Please," he said. "I need to talk to you. I'm sorry. I made a mistake." "You made a choice," I snapped before I could stop myself. He started crying. Actual crying. It would have pulled on my heart if he hadn't followed it with, "Your brother pushed me. He was in my head all night. He kept calling me weak. He kept saying I'd regret it if I didn't do something. I was drunk, Brielle." I stood there, breathing hard. "So you're telling me you're a puppet," I said, "a grown man with no spine." "That's not fair," he protested, which was almost funny. Not haha funny. More like, "Of course that's what you focus on funny." He added, "I'm paying for it now." "Are you sorry because you hurt me?" I asked. "Or because you got caught?" He flinched. "Both," he admitted, and I swear that honesty was the most insulting part. "I'm not discussing this," I said. "Talk to my attorney." He cursed under his breath. "You're ruining my life," he hissed, and there it was. The real emotion. The one that mattered to him. I closed the door gently and locked it, then slid down onto the floor and shook with adrenaline. Not because I missed him, because I hated that my heart still tried to do that loyal thing. A few weeks later, his attorney contacted mine with a proposal, a payment plan. It wasn't a pity offer. It was a reality offer. My fiancé didn't have a pile of cash sitting around. He had bills, loans, and an ego that was now being stomped by his own consequences. He offered monthly payments over a couple of years, with a written schedule, because he wanted to avoid a formal hearing. My attorney asked me what I wanted. What I wanted was to never hear his voice again. What I wanted was to rip out the part of my brain that kept remembering the good moments like a traitor. What I wanted was impossible. So I picked the practical option. I agreed to the payment plan with 2 conditions. He would stop contacting me directly, and he would sign a clause confirming he understood the wedding was canceled because of his actions, and that he wasn't allowed to publicly claim I lied about him. My attorney said it in legal language. I said it in human language. "Do not rewrite me as the villain." He signed. My brother still refused. When my attorney's office called him, he yelled at the receptionist and claimed he hadn't done anything illegal. He said I was being dramatic. He said I was obsessed with punishing him. He offered a small fraction of the amount and framed it like generosity. My attorney asked, "Do you want to settle for that?" I pictured my brother's "not my problem" text. I pictured him smirking in that coffee shop. I pictured my mother twisting her ring and trying to make me responsible for everyone's comfort. I pictured my father's deadpan voice. He meant it. "No," I said. "He can learn." Around that time, I started therapy. Not because I wanted to become enlightened, because I was having moments where I'd be in the grocery store and suddenly my chest would tighten like I was back in that phone call. I'd be driving and a wedding ad would flash by and my ears would ring. I'd lie in bed and hear my brother's words on a loop. Now you get it. Therapy didn't turn me into a serene saint. It gave me tools. My therapist had me practice saying no out loud in a mirror because my voice used to betray me, rise at the end like a question, soften like an apology. She made me write down the rules I'd grown up with, the invisible ones. Don't embarrass the family. Don't upset your brother. Don't make your mother cry. Don't take up too much space. Then she had me write counter rules like I was rewriting a contract with myself. My pain counts. My safety matters. I don't owe access to anyone who hurts me. Family is not a hall pass. She also taught me how to come down from the adrenaline spikes. I learned to name 5 things I could see, 4 things I could touch, 3 things I could hear, 2 things I could smell, and 1 thing I could taste. It sounded cheesy until it stopped my hands from shaking in a grocery store aisle. I learned to stop arguing with people who were committed to misunderstanding me. I learned that repeating the same boundary in the same calm tone is not cold. It's consistent. Little by little, I rebuilt routines that weren't built around managing other people's emotions. I started walking after work with a podcast in my ears, not because I was chasing healing, but because movement reminded my body it belonged to me. I stopped checking my phone first thing in the morning. I stopped reading my brother's posts when people sent them. I curated my life the way I used to curate seating charts. carefully, on purpose, without apologizing for the empty chairs. I even changed small things. New grocery store, different coffee place, a new route to work. Because sometimes you don't need a dramatic transformation. You need fewer reminders. My therapist didn't tell me to move on. She asked me why my brother's cruelty hit so hard, and I said without thinking, because he's been punishing me my whole life for being the stable one. The therapist raised an eyebrow. Punishing you how? And suddenly I had a million small memories. My brother mocking me for studying, calling me boring, breaking my stuff by accident, making fun of my friends, telling me no one would want me if I kept acting better than everyone. I'd always brushed it off because I didn't want to be the sensitive sister who couldn't take a joke. I see now that the joke was that I believed him. One evening, my mother called and asked me to reconsider, not because she thought I was wrong, but because she was terrified my brother would cut her off and she wouldn't get to be the mother who keeps the family together. "He's your brother," she whispered. "I'm your daughter," I replied, and my voice was so calm it startled even me. "Why is he the one you're afraid to lose?" She didn't answer. She just cried. And I hung up, because I was tired of being the person who stayed on the line to soothe everyone else while my own heart sat there bleeding. A month after the wedding date that never happened, my fiancé asked, through my attorney, for a brief, in-person conversation. Closure, he called it. I called it emotional self-harm. But my therapist said something that stuck. Avoiding a conversation because you're scared isn't the same as having a boundary. A boundary is a choice. Avoidance is a wound controlling you. So I agreed to meet him in the parking lot of my apartment building in the late afternoon while it was still light out, in a spot near the entrance where other people were coming and going. I didn't bring a friend because I didn't want it to become a spectacle. I also didn't trust myself not to use my best friend as a shield. I wanted to see if I could stand there on my own. He showed up with messy hair and a face that looked like he'd been sleeping badly. For a second, my body did that stupid, familiar thing. Heart tug, warmth, memory. Like it didn't get the memo that he'd wrecked us. Then he opened his mouth and the reality snapped back. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I know you don't owe me anything, but I need you to hear it from me." I crossed my arms. "I've heard it," I said. "In messages, in voicemails, in your post where you implied I was losing my mind." His face tightened. "I was panicking," he muttered. "I felt attacked." I laughed softly. "You felt attacked? That's incredible." He ran a hand through his hair. "Your brother was in my ear all night." He started again, like it was a prayer he could repeat until it became absolution. He kept calling me weak. He kept saying marriage would ruin me. He said you'd leave me eventually anyway because you're too good for me. My chest tightened. "Did you believe him?" I asked. He hesitated, and that hesitation told me more than any speech. "I was drunk," he said finally. "I was insecure. I wanted to feel wanted." "You were wanted," I snapped. "I was marrying you." He winced. "I know." We stood there in silence while someone walked past us carrying groceries, glancing at us like we were a normal couple having a normal argument, which felt surreal. I said, "Are you here to apologize or are you here to negotiate?" He swallowed. "Both," he admitted. "You're paying," he said quickly. "I'm doing the plan. I'm selling stuff. I'm cutting back. I'm trying to fix it." "You can't fix it," I said. "You can pay what you owe. That's not fixing. That's just not stealing." His eyes flashed. "You're acting like I'm a monster," he protested. "No," I said, voice steady. "I'm acting like you're a man who made choices and now wants comfort because the consequences hurt." He stepped closer, like instinctively reaching for something familiar. I stepped back. He stopped. I saw a flicker of anger cross his face and my pulse jumped. "You're going to make me pay for this forever," he said, voice bitter. "I'm going to make you pay what you agreed to pay," I corrected. "The rest is on you." He reached out, grabbed my forearm. Not hard, not bruising, but possessive, like he could anchor me to him. My skin crawled. "Don't," I said sharply, and he let go like he'd been burned. I stared at the spot his fingers had been, my pulse loud in my ears. "If you ever touch me like that again," I said, "I will call the police. Not because I want drama, because I want safety." His face drained. "I didn't mean, I don't care what you meant," I snapped. "I care what you did." He backed away, hands up, like I'd pulled a weapon instead of words. He nodded, eyes wet, and then he walked to his car and drove off. That night, I blocked his number. The payment plan continued through the attorneys. He could be sorry from a distance. A few weeks later, my mother tried to stage what she called a family reset during a holiday weekend. She invited my brother without telling me, hoping I'd show up and feel trapped into being civil. That's her style. Force proximity. Call it healing. When I walked into my parents' living room and saw my brother lounging on the couch like nothing happened, my stomach dropped. My mother smiled too brightly. My father looked tired. "Oh, good," my mother chirped. "You're both here. We can talk." My brother smirked. "Look who finally showed up," he said. I set my keys down slowly. "You ambushed me," I said to my mother. She fluttered her hands. "I just want peace," she pleaded. "I want us to move on." My brother laughed. "Move on from what? Your little canceled wedding? People have real problems, you know." Something in me snapped. Not the explosive kind. The quiet kind. The kind that turns a door in your mind from open to locked. I looked at my brother. "You're paying," I said. He rolled his eyes. "You're obsessed." "I'm done," I said, and turned to my mother. "If you ever put me in a room with him again without telling me, I will stop coming here. You can have your peace. It just won't include me." My mother's face crumpled. "You'd abandon your family?" she whispered, horrified. I almost laughed. "He already did," I said. "You just keep pretending he didn't." I walked out. I sat in my car and let the air shake in my lungs. Because leaving felt like betrayal, and also like breathing. That was the first time I chose myself over the role I'd been assigned. Meanwhile, my brother's case moved forward in the most boring way possible. Paperwork, deadlines, a scheduled small claims civil hearing months out. I also had to accept a small, humiliating truth. I wasn't suing because I loved conflict. I was suing because my brother had learned that if he created enough noise, everyone would rush to calm him down and ask me to compromise. Paperwork was the only language he couldn't interrupt. Around that time, my best friend came over with takeout and sat on my couch like she belonged there. She watched me poke at my food and finally said, "You're allowed to be done." "I feel like a monster," I admitted. "You're not a monster," she said. "You're just no longer available for their nonsense." We sat there a while and then she added, "You know he did this because he wanted you to feel what I felt." I blinked. "What?" She nodded. "When I left him, he blamed me for his embarrassment. He didn't process it, he stored it. Then he saw your wedding and thought, finally, her turn." I stared at my hands. My brother's "now you get it" text suddenly made sick sense. He didn't just want to knock me off a pedestal. He wanted me to understand pain the way he understood it. Except he didn't understand it as pain he caused. He understood it as something done to him. Waiting for the hearing was its own kind of torture. The sanitized, bureaucratic kind. There were filing fees, scheduling notices, rescheduled dates because someone's attorney had a conflict, and long stretches where nothing happened at all. People assume legal action is dramatic. Most of it is just patience and printing. My brother tried to weaponize that waiting. He'd tell relatives, "See, nothing's happening. She's bluffing." He wanted the process to exhaust me into silence. It didn't. The hearing happened in late spring, months after the canceled wedding, on a weekday morning that started with me staring at my closet like it was going to choose an outfit for me. I picked something plain and comfortable because I refused to look like I was dressed for a performance. My attorney met me outside the building, calm as always, holding a folder thick with the evidence I'd collected. Inside, the hallway smelled like stale coffee and anxiety. People sat on benches clutching paperwork. No one looked heroic. Everyone looked tired. It was strangely comforting. My brother showed up late, wearing a forced smile, acting like he was attending a casual appointment. He tried to wink at me. I didn't respond. He leaned toward my mother, who had insisted on coming, and whispered something that made her flinch. My father sat on my other side, silent, steady. When we were called in, we sat at separate tables. My brother brought his own attorney, a man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. My brother kept tapping his foot, restless, like a child waiting for recess. Small Claims is not a movie. No jury, no theatrics, just receipts, emails, and who was legally tied to the charges. The judge was practical, not dramatic. She asked for the basic timeline. My attorney laid it out simply. The lounge add-on tied to my wedding package. The email confirming my brother arranged it. The venue invoice for damages. The screenshots proving the group chat described what happened. The documented costs I paid because my name was on the contract. My brother's attorney tried to frame it like I was overreaching. He said the group chat was joking. He said my brother didn't physically spill anything. He suggested the venue manager could be exaggerating. The judge asked my brother one direct question. "Did you arrange the lounge reservation?" My brother shrugged. I helped, he said, but it was for the groom. So you did arrange it, the judge clarified. My brother rolled his eyes. Sure, he said, like he was agreeing to a silly detail. The judge looked unimpressed. She asked about the email. My brother tried to claim he only CC'd himself. My attorney handed over the printed chain where my brother confirmed details like he was the organizer. The judge read it, slowly, then set it down. My brother started talking, too much, too fast. He said I was punishing him. He said I'd always hated him. He said I was using this as an excuse to take him down because I thought I was better than him. He said, she's always been the perfect one. Like that was proof of something. The judge held up a hand. This isn't about your sibling dynamic, she said. This is about responsibility for expenses tied to a contract. My brother's face flushed. He muttered, "It's not fair," under his breath. And in that moment, I saw him exactly as he was. A grown man who thought fairness meant being protected from consequences. The judge made a decision that day. Not every single item in my list was granted. Some things were reduced. Some were deemed too indirect. But the core pieces were clear. The venue damages tied to the lounge reservation, the documented costs connected to his role as organizer, part of the court fees. My brother was ordered to pay. Outside the room, my brother turned to me, face red. "You ruined me," he spat. I stared at him. My hands were trembling, but my voice was steady. "You did this," I said. "You could have paid months ago and ended it. You chose this instead." He laughed bitterly. "You're so cold now," he sneered. "No," I said. "I'm warm with the people who don't hurt me." My mother stepped between us, desperate. "Please," she begged to both of us, like she could patch this by sheer will. My father put a hand on her shoulder and said quietly, "It's done." On the drive home, my mother stared out the window and kept wiping at her cheeks. Not for me, not for what I lost, but for the fact that her fantasy of a close, peaceful family was crumbling. I felt relief and grief at the same time. That mix became familiar. My brother paid in chunks. He had to sell his vehicle. He had to borrow. He had to give up whatever he used to distract himself. He complained to anyone who would listen. Most people didn't listen. The relatives who'd once defended him got quieter. My mother tried to turn his payments into a tragedy. He had to sell his vehicle, she would say, as if that was an injustice instead of a consequence. She'd tell me he was stressed, that he was losing sleep, that he was scared. I started responding the same way every time. I was scared too. Then I'd stop talking. She hated that. She wanted me to provide the emotional soundtrack to his suffering. I refused. If my brother needed comfort, he could find it in the person he'd always relied on to smooth things over. Our mother. I was done being his soft landing. My fiancé kept paying too. Month after month, a deposit would land according to the schedule. Sometimes my attorney would forward a brief confirmation. Sometimes I'd see a note attached where he tried to sound regretful without being manipulative. I didn't reply. About a year after the canceled wedding, I moved into a different apartment. Same city, different neighborhood, different walls. I needed a place that didn't hold so many echoes. The night I packed, I found the wedding leftovers I'd shoved into a storage closet. Unused decorations, a guest book no one signed, tiny favors still in their bags, a stack of receipts that felt like a museum exhibit of my naivety. The dress was still there too because I couldn't bring myself to touch it for months. Not because I wanted it, because it felt radioactive. Like if I opened the garment bag, I'd inhale the version of my life that didn't happen and choke. So I did something impulsive again. I posted it online and sold it for a fraction of what it cost. After that, I went through the wedding leftovers like I was cleaning out a storage unit for someone else. I returned what I could. I donated unopened decor to a community center that hosted small events for families who couldn't afford the fancy stuff. I handed my mother the guest book and told her she could keep it if she needed a souvenir of her own expectations. She looked at it like it had personally insulted her. I didn't feel cruel. I felt done. The day a stranger came to pick up the dress, I didn't cry. I felt hollow. She held it up and smiled and said, "It's beautiful." I nodded and said, "It is," because it was, and because it didn't matter. When she left with it, I stood in my doorway and let the silence settle. Then I went back inside and cleaned, because apparently my coping mechanism is tidying when I can't control anything else. My relationship with my mother changed. She stopped trying to force reconciliation after I walked out on the holiday ambush. Or more accurately, she learned I would actually leave. She still made little comments. "He's still your brother. Families forgive. Time heals." Like she was reading from a script. I stopped arguing. I just said, I'm not discussing him, and changed the subject. It drove her crazy at first. Then it became normal. My father, in his quiet way, started calling me more. Not to talk about feelings. He'd ask if my car was running okay, if my job was treating me right, if I needed help moving furniture. It was his version of love. I learned to accept it without wishing he'd say more. My brother tried once to contact me directly after he'd paid most of what he owed. He sent a message that read, "Can we talk like adults?" Which made me laugh out loud because the audacity was almost impressive. I didn't respond. A week later, he sent another. "You got what you wanted. Are you happy?" I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed, "I wanted a brother who loved me," and deleted it, because giving him my honest pain felt like handing him a weapon. So I wrote, "Do not contact me again." He didn't. Not because he respected my boundary, because he hates being ignored. The last payment from my fiancé came about 2 years after the wedding that never happened. My attorney emailed me a confirmation. "Final payment received," she wrote. That was it. No fireworks, just a line of text and an ended attachment. That night, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Curiosity got me. I answered, and I heard my fiancé's voice. "Brielle," he said softly, like my name still belonged to him. My skin prickled. "Why are you calling?" I asked. I wanted to say I paid everything," he said. "And I wanted you to know I'm sorry. Still, I don't expect anything from you. He trailed off, waiting for me to fill the silence the way I used to. "I hope you learned something," I said. "Do not call me again." He exhaled like he'd been punched. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." I hung up, blocked the number, and sat there for a minute with my heart pounding. Not because I missed him, because I felt proud. Because I'd just done something that would have been impossible for the version of me who thought love meant endless access. A couple of months later, I got invited to a cousin's backyard cookout. Nothing fancy. Paper plates, kids running around, someone overcooking burgers and acting proud about it. I almost didn't go. Social events made me tense because I never knew if my brother would be there like an uninvited shadow. But I went anyway, because rebuilding a life happens in small, boring choices. At first, it was fine. I laughed at a joke. I talked about work. I pretended I was normal. Then, across the yard, I saw my brother walk in with a case of drinks like he was the hero bringing supplies. My stomach flipped. My throat tightened. He spotted me and smirked like he'd been waiting to see if I'd run. Instead, I did something different. I didn't leave. I didn't confront him. I just turned back to my cousin and asked if there was any extra ice. I stayed by the cooler with the women who were talking about daycare costs and rent increases and how everyone's back hurts now. Normal stuff. Real stuff. The stuff my brother can't compete with because it doesn't revolve around him. He drifted closer a few minutes later, trying to slide into the circle with that fake charm. He opened his mouth to make a joke, something about me being uptight, and my cousin cut him off, sharp. "Not here," she said. My brother blinked. "What?" She didn't soften. "Not here," she repeated. "If you want to be invited, you behave." I watched my brother's face change in real time. Surprise, anger, humiliation. He looked around for backup. No one jumped in. A couple people avoided his eyes. Someone kept talking about groceries like nothing happened. He tried to laugh it off. "Wow," he said. "So we're policing jokes now?" My cousin shrugged. "We're policing you," she said casually, like it was obvious. My brother stood there for a second, trapped in the quiet. Then he walked away, shoulders stiff. He didn't slam a door this time. He didn't threaten to disappear. He just left the circle because the attention wasn't his anymore. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt something better. Safe. Later, when the sun started going down and the kids were winding down, I sat on a folding chair with a paper plate balanced on my knees and realized I wasn't bracing anymore. I wasn't scanning the yard for threats. I wasn't waiting for my brother to say something that would require me to defend my existence. I was just there, surrounded by people talking about ordinary problems and ordinary joys. That's what boundaries buy you, the ability to be boring again. I'm not writing this because I think I'm brave. I'm writing it because I know there are other women like me, women who get labeled too much the second they stop absorbing everyone else's chaos. If you're that woman, here's the thing I learned the hard way. Boundaries aren't cruelty. Boundaries are the price of being allowed to stay in your own life. I still have bad days. I still get triggered by wedding ads and group chats and the phrase, "be the bigger person." I still sometimes miss the fantasy version of my brother. the one who would have defended me instead of sabotaging me. But I don't miss the version of me who thought she had to earn love by being convenient. That version of me is gone. And honestly, mission accomplished.